My family secretly decided my house was going to be my brother's new free apartment, and they brought a U-Haul to force their way in. So, I locked the doors, activated a brand new $4,500 perimeter security system, and watched from a coffee shop while the police explained the legal definition of trespassing to them. Original post. The text came in at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night. It wasn't a question, it wasn't a polite request to crash on my couch. It was a direct, unapologetic statement. Jake, we're moving in on Friday. Mom already agreed. Clean out the guest room. I laid there in the dark, the harsh blue light of my phone screen illuminating my bedroom, and stared at those words for a solid 2 minutes. We're moving in. Not, hey man, we're in a tough spot, can we stay for a bit? Not, would you mind helping us out? Just, we're moving in. It was written exactly like my house was a budget motel he had already booked through our mother, and I was just the underpaid housekeeping staff expected to turn down the bedsheets. I sat up, the exhaustion of a 10-hour workday instantly evaporating from my body, replaced by a cold, sharp spike of adrenaline. I scrolled up through my message history with my older brother, Chase. The last text before this audacious demand? 4 months ago. That was when he had asked to borrow my SUV for a quick errand, and returned it 3 days later with an empty gas tank, fast food wrappers littering the floorboards, and a massive scrape on the passenger side door that he swore up and down was already there. Before that? 7 months ago. He had called begging for $400 for emergency car repairs so he wouldn't lose his job. 2 days after I transferred the money, I saw him posting Instagram stories from a VIP table at a downtown nightclub, popping bottles with his friends. And now, he was moving in. With who? His girlfriend, Chloe? Her 2 massive, untrained pit bulls? A random collection of roommates he had promised my spare space to? I hit the call button. It rang once, twice. Voicemail. Typical Chase. I called again. Voicemail again. On the 3rd attempt, he finally picked up. The background noise was deafening, heavy bass music blasting, people shouting, the clinking of glasses. Yo, what's up little bro? He shouted over the noise. Chase, what the hell is this text message? I demanded, keeping my voice dangerously level. What text? He sounded genuinely confused, as if he had sent a message declaring he was commandeering my property, immediately forgotten about it, and gone right back to partying. The one about moving into my house this Friday. Oh, yeah, sick, right? Me and Chloe need a place to crash for a few months. Our lease is up and the landlord is being a total tool about renewing. Mom said your guest room is just sitting empty anyway, so it works out perfect. Mom said? I repeated, my grip on the phone tightening until my knuckles turned white. Chase, I never talked to Mom about this. Well, she said you'd be cool with it, or she said she was going to talk to you. I don't know, man. The point is, we need a spot, you've got a massive house with extra space, and we're coming Friday. It's family. You're not going to say no to family. It's family. You're not going to say no. There it was, the ultimate weapon. The guilt bomb they had been dropping on my head since I was old enough to walk. When our dad needed someone to co-sign a high-interest auto loan because his credit score was in the gutter. Family. When my older sister, Sarah, needed free babysitting every single weekend because she deserved a break from the kids she chose to have. Family. When Chase wrecked his first car while driving under the influence and needed someone to lie to the insurance investigator. Family. And now, apparently, the word family meant I was legally obligated to hand over the keys to the house I had bled for. Chase, I am not running a halfway house. You are not moving in here. Whoa, harsh much? He scoffed, his tone dripping with unearned arrogance. We just need like 3 months. 4 tops. Maybe 6 if Chloe's freelance thing doesn't take off. We're just trying to get on our feet. We need a fresh start. You know how it is. I didn't know how it is. Because when I needed a fresh start at 24 years old, drowning in student debt and laid off from my first real job, nobody offered me a warm guest room. I slept in the back of my freezing 2008 Honda Civic for 2 straight months in a Walmart parking lot. I worked 65-hour weeks across 2 brutal jobs loading trucks at 4 a.m. and waiting tables until midnight just so I could afford the security deposit on a studio apartment that was infested with cockroaches. Nobody in my family offered me a dime. Nobody offered me a hot meal. They told me it builds character. Chase, you cannot just move into my house, I said firmly. Why not? You live alone. You've got a 3-bedroom house, bro. You're hoarding space. Mom already said. Mom doesn't live here. Mom doesn't pay my mortgage, she doesn't pay my property taxes, and she doesn't get to make decisions about my home. The line went dead silent for a moment, the thumping bass in the background suddenly very loud. Then, his voice dropped, losing the fake friendly tone. Bro, are you seriously being like this right now? After everything? You're going to leave your own blood out in the cold? What does after everything even mean? Chase, you've never done a single thing for me. You know what it means. We're family. You help family. Stop being a selfish prick. I'll call you back, I said, and hung up the phone. Almost instantly, my screen lit up with a barrage of incoming texts. Mom, Chase just called me. He told me you're being extremely difficult about Friday. He just needs a little help, Jake. Don't be selfish. We raised you better than this. Chase, whatever, man. We'll figure it out. Thanks for nothing, you greedy bastard. Dad, your mother is very upset. Call her immediately and apologize. You have the room, let your brother use it. I didn't reply to any of them. I turned my phone on silent, tossed it onto my nightstand, and sat in the pitch black of my bedroom, thinking about the house I had bought 4 years ago. I didn't inherit this place. I didn't get a down payment gifted to me by rich relatives. I bought it with money I had saved by working myself to the bone as a project manager for a commercial logistics firm. I scraped the down payment together by eating plain rice and beans for years, skipping vacations, driving a beat-up car, and never going out. I paid the mortgage every single month, on time, entirely by myself. This house was my sanctuary. Every single square foot of it belonged to me. The guest room Chase felt so entitled to, I didn't even have a bed in there. I used it as my dedicated home office. My massive oak desk was in there, along with my filing cabinets, my 3-monitor setup, and the expensive ergonomic chair I bought to save my back. It was the place where I worked remotely 3 days a week. But to Chase, it was just sitting empty. To my mother, it was space I was selfishly hoarding. To my family, my life, my success, and my property were just raw materials waiting to be harvested for their convenience. I threw off the blankets, walked downstairs in the dark, and started brewing a pot of coffee at 12:30 a.m. like an absolute psychopath. Then I opened my laptop and started typing. I wasn't making a list of polite reasons to say no. I was making a battle plan to ensure that my no was an impenetrable fortress. I knew my family. I knew that to them, no was just the opening line of a negotiation. To them, boundaries were merely suggestions, and locked doors were just puzzles they felt entitled to solve. If I wanted to protect what I had built, words wouldn't be enough. I needed infrastructure. By 2 a.m., I had a comprehensive plan. The next morning, at exactly 8:01 a.m., I called a high-end local security company. Hi, I need an immediate, emergency upgrade to my home security system. I want full perimeter coverage. Motion sensors on every point of entry, a high-definition doorbell camera, glass break sensors on every first-floor window, reinforced strike plates on the exterior doors, and cellular battery backup so it works even if the power is cut. The sales rep on the phone sounded taken aback but thrilled. Wow, okay. Planning a long trip overseas? Something like that. I need a technician out here today. I will pay whatever emergency expedite fee you require. We can have our senior tech out by 1 p.m. today. Perfect. My next call was to my buddy Marcus. He was a senior property manager I had worked with on a few massive commercial logistics projects. He was ruthless, brilliant, and knew tenant and property law better than most attorneys. Marcus, hypothetical question, I said when he picked up. If someone packs up a moving truck and tries to forcefully move into your primary residence without your permission, what is the exact legal move? He let out a bark of laughter. That's called criminal trespassing, buddy. You call the police and let them handle it. What if the people trying to move in are immediate family members? Still criminal trespassing. Sharing DNA doesn't magically grant you real estate property rights. If their name isn't on the deed or a signed lease, they are intruders. What if they try to claim they have verbal permission? My mother told my brother he could move in. She doesn't own the house, but she told him he could. Doesn't matter. She has no legal authority to grant access to a property she doesn't own. Did you ever give them a key? Never. Then if they try to force the door, it escalates to breaking and entering. Do you want me to draft up a formal cease and desist letter for you, just to have a paper trail? Yes, make it sound as legally terrifying as possible. Let me see how this Friday plays out first, but I want it ready. This sounds like an insane story, Jake. It is. I'll buy you a steak dinner when it's all over. I hung up the phone and sat at my kitchen island. For the first time in my life when dealing with my family, I didn't feel a crushing sense of anxiety. I didn't feel the suffocating weight of guilt. I just felt pure, unadulterated control. I was finally 3 steps ahead of their chaos. Wednesday afternoon, the security tech, a burly ex-military guy named Dave, showed up. So, you want eyes on every single entry point? Dave asked, looking over my property lines. Every single one. Front door, back patio door, side garage door, and all 6 windows on the ground floor. He raised an eyebrow, unpacking his massive tool bag. You expecting a cartel hit, buddy? Let's just call it extreme preventative maintenance against unwanted guests. Dave grinned. I like your style. Let's lock this place down. It took him 5 hours. By the time the sun set, my house was a technological fortress. I had 4 4K night vision cameras covering the perimeter. Every door and window had a sensor. The front door had a keypad deadbolt with a 12-digit code only I knew. I had a master control panel in the hallway, and an app on my phone that let me monitor every square inch of my property in real time. The total cost was $4,500, and it was the best money I had ever spent. The Ring doorbell camera was the crown jewel. Two-way audio, crystal clear video, and motion tracking. You're all set, Dave said, wiping grease off his hands. You'll get push notifications on your phone anytime a sensor is tripped. You can arm and disarm the system remotely from anywhere in the world. And if the alarm triggers while armed, it automatically bypasses the monitoring center and dispatches local law enforcement directly. You have the premium package. Automatically? I asked, thrilled. Yep. The alarm screams at 120 decibels, the system verifies it's a breach, and the cops are rolling within seconds. After he left, I spent an hour playing with the app. I tested the sensors, armed the system, and opened the back door. The siren was so loud it rattled my teeth, and my phone instantly lit up with a red alert. Breach detected. Back patio door. Armed mode activated. I disarmed it, feeling a grim sense of satisfaction. Then, I went into the doorbell camera settings and found the automated greeting feature. I recorded a custom message. Hi. You have reached a private residence. If you do not have a scheduled appointment with the homeowner, you are trespassing. Please leave the property immediately. Smile. You are on multiple recorded cameras. Short, polite, unmistakably hostile. Thursday morning, my phone started ringing again. It was Mom. I let it go straight to voicemail. She left a 4-minute, rambling message. She started by saying how deeply disappointed she was in my selfish attitude, pivoted to explaining how Chase and Chloe had nowhere else to go, and ended by demanding I leave the front door unlocked on Friday morning because they were arriving early. She never once asked for my permission. She never acknowledged that I owned the house. She just expected me to submit. I deleted the voicemail. Then Chase texted me. Chase, you're really going to do this? You're going to make us homeless? Wow. Just wow. Homeless. Right. Like he wasn't currently sitting in a fully furnished apartment. Like he didn't have a dozen friends he partied with every weekend. Like his complete and utter failure to plan his life was somehow my emergency to fix. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Marcus. Send me that cease and desist letter. Check your email. It's on official legal letterhead from my retaining firm. Who are the targets? My brother, Chase, and my mother, Susan. Marcus whistled over the line. Mother and brother? You don't mess around. Family drama is my favorite spectator sport. Keep me posted. Friday morning arrived. Moving day. I woke up at 6 a.m. I printed 3 copies of the cease and desist letter on the thickest, most expensive paper I owned. I read through the legal jargon. It explicitly stated that any attempt to enter, occupy, or claim residence at my address without my express written consent constituted criminal trespassing, and that law enforcement would be involved immediately. It was a beautiful document. I sealed them in heavy manila envelopes and left them on my kitchen counter. I checked my security app. The perimeter was secure. No movement. I armed the system to away mode, grabbed my laptop bag, and left the house. But I didn't drive to my corporate office. Instead, I drove to a small, independent coffee shop exactly 3 blocks away from my neighborhood. I ordered a large iced Americano, sat at a corner table with a perfect view of the street, opened my laptop, and waited. Chase's text had said they were moving in today. I wanted a front row seat to the exact moment reality hit him in the face. Update 1. At exactly 10:47 a.m., my phone vibrated violently against the cafe table. Alert. Motion detected at front door. I opened the app. The 4K video feed loaded instantly. There they were. Chase and Chloe were standing on my front porch. Chase was wearing a backwards snapback and holding a massive stuffed duffel bag. Chloe was dragging 2 oversized pink suitcases. Parked illegally in my driveway, crushing half of my manicured flower bed, was a faded orange U-Haul box truck. I watched the live feed as Chase confidently reached forward and pressed the doorbell. Instantly, my recorded voice echoed clearly out of the doorbell speaker. Hi, you have reached a private residence. If you do not have a scheduled appointment with the homeowner, you are trespassing. Please leave the property immediately. Smile, you are on multiple recorded cameras. Chase physically recoiled. He looked up, squinting at the camera lens, and let out a nervous laugh. He waved his hand in front of the lens. Yo, Jake. It's me, bro. Very funny with the robot voice. Open up, man, this bag is heavy. I tapped the microphone icon on my screen to activate the two-way audio. I took a sip of my coffee, leaned into my phone, and spoke. Chase, you are not welcome here. Take your bags, get back in that truck, and leave my property. Chase's smile vanished. He stepped closer to the door, his brow furrowing in anger. Dude, what the hell is your problem? We drove 4 hours this morning. We have the truck for the whole weekend. Open the damn door. I told you no on Tuesday. You ignored me. I am telling you no right now. If you don't leave, you are criminally trespassing. Trespassing? Chase yelled, his voice echoing through the quiet suburban street. "This is family, you psycho. Open the door." Chloe stepped into the frame, looking exasperated. "Jake, this is ridiculous. Your mom said we could have the room. Stop throwing a tantrum and let us inside. I need to use the bathroom." "My mother does not own this property," I said, my voice eerily calm through the speaker. "I do. You have exactly 10 seconds to remove yourselves from my porch before I dispatch the police." Chase's face turned a violent shade of red. "You're not calling the cops on your own brother. You're full of shit." 10, 9, 8. Chase dropped his duffel bag. He pulled out his phone and started frantically typing, probably texting our mother. 7, 6. Chloe grabbed his arm, looking nervously around at the neighboring houses. "Chase, maybe we should just go. People are looking." "No." Chase snapped, shaking her off. "He's bluffing. He's a coward. He's always been a coward." 5, 4. My phone buzzed with an incoming text from Mom. "Jake, what on earth is wrong with you? Let your brother inside right this second. Stop this foolishness." 3, 2. Chase lost his temper completely. He lunged forward, grabbed my front door handle, and wrenched it hard. The reinforced deadbolt didn't even wiggle. He jiggled it violently, then balled his hand into a fist and started pounding on the heavy wood door. "Open the door, Jake. Stop being a bitch and open the door." 1. I didn't just call the police. I tapped the red emergency siren button on the security app. Instantly, the 120 decibel alarm erupted from the exterior speakers of my house. It was a piercing, deafening wail that sounded like an air raid siren. On the video feed, Chase and Chloe both clamped their hands over their ears, stumbling backward off the porch in sheer panic. My phone screen flashed red again. "Alert! Alarm triggered. Law enforcement dispatched." I sat back in my chair at the coffee shop, took another slow sip of my Americano, and watched the chaos unfold on my screen. It was better than any movie I had ever seen. The police arrived in less than 6 minutes. I watched the black and white cruiser pull up behind the U-Haul, its lights flashing brilliantly in the mid-morning sun. The alarm was still screaming. Chloe was standing on the sidewalk, practically in tears, holding her phone to her ear. Chase was pacing furiously in the driveway. 2 officers stepped out of the cruiser. The older one, a veteran with a graying mustache who looked like he was already exhausted by the day, put his hand up. "Sir, step away from the residence and keep your hands visible." The older officer shouted over the alarm. Chase spun around, looking relieved. "Finally, thank God you're here. My psycho brother locked us out of the house and turned on this alarm." "This is your residence?" the younger officer asked, resting his hand casually on his duty belt. "It's my brother's house, but we're moving in today. He told us we could." The older officer frowned, looking from Chase to the massive U-Haul truck parked on the grass. "The homeowner explicitly told you that you could move in?" "Well," Chase stammered, his confidence faltering. "Our mom told us we could. She set it all up." "That is not the same thing, son." "It is the same thing. It's family." I closed my laptop, packed my bag, and walked the 3 blocks back to my house. I wanted to handle the rest of this in person. By the time I walked up the sidewalk, the officers had separated Chase and Chloe. The alarm had automatically timed out, leaving an eerie silence on the street. My neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, a sweet retired woman who baked the best lasagna in the state, was standing on her porch watching the entire spectacle with a pair of gardening shears in her hand. I approached the older officer calmly and extended my hand. "Good morning, officers. I am Jake, the homeowner." The older officer shook my hand. "You're the one who triggered the panic alarm?" "Yes, sir. I monitored the situation remotely via my security cameras." Chase pointed a shaking finger at me. "See, there he is. Tell them this is a huge misunderstanding. Jake, tell them Mom said we could stay." I didn't even look at Chase. I kept my eyes locked on the officer. "There is no misunderstanding here, officer. These 2 individuals showed up uninvited, attempted to force entry into my home, and refused to leave after I gave them multiple verbal warnings to vacate the premises." "That's a lie." Chloe shrieked from the sidewalk. "He never warned us." "I have the entire encounter recorded," I said, pulling out my phone. "High-definition video and 2-way audio, fully time-stamped. Would you like to review the footage?" The younger officer nodded. "Yes, please." I opened the app and played the footage from 10 minutes prior. I turned the volume up so everyone could hear. The officers watched in silence as the video showed Chase ignoring my warnings, screaming obscenities, trying to break the door handle, and pounding on the wood. When the video ended, the older officer let out a long sigh and turned to Chase. "Son, that is textbook criminal trespassing. You have zero legal right to be on this property." "But he's my brother," Chase pleaded, his voice cracking. "I don't care if he's the Pope," the officer replied bluntly. "It is his property. He gave you a lawful order to leave. You refused and attempted to force entry. That is a crime." Chloe started sobbing loudly. "We drove 4 hours. We have all our stuff in the truck." We don't have anywhere else to go. The younger officer looked at them with a hint of pity, but his voice remained firm. Ma'am, poor planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on his part. You cannot break into a house just because you have nowhere else to go. The older officer turned back to me. Sir, do you wish to press formal criminal charges today? The entire street went dead silent. Chase's face drained of all color. He looked like he was going to vomit. Charges? Jake, dude, come on, please, don't do this. I looked at Chase. I looked at his girlfriend crying on the curb. I looked at the U-Haul truck filled with their junk. A dark, vengeful part of me desperately wanted to say yes. I wanted to see him in handcuffs. But I also knew that pressing charges right then would ignite a legal firestorm that would drag on for months, requiring me to go to court and deal with a public defender. I wanted peace, not a prolonged war. Not today, I said slowly, making sure Chase heard every word. But I want it officially documented. If they ever step foot on my property again, I will press charges to the maximum extent of the law. The officer nodded. Understood. He turned to Chase. You heard the man. You are officially trespassed from this address. If you come back, for any reason, you will leave in the back of my cruiser. Now get in your truck and leave. Chase opened his mouth to argue, saw the officer's hand rest on his cuffs, and quickly shut it. He grabbed his duffel bag, marched to the U-Haul, and slammed the door. Chloe practically ran to the passenger side. They started the loud, sputtering engine and drove away, leaving deep tire ruts in my grass. After they were out of sight, the older officer handed me a business card with an incident number written on the back. Keep this. If they show up again, call 911, reference this number, and we'll arrest them on site. Honestly, given the family dynamic, you might want to look into a restraining order. I plan on it, thank you, officers. They drove off. I stood in my driveway, taking a deep breath of the morning air. Mrs. Higgins walked over from her yard, shaking her head. Family drama? She asked sympathetically. The worst kind, I replied. Well, you handled it beautifully. You want me to bring over a tray of lasagna tonight? Sounds like you need some comfort food. Mrs. Higgins, you are an angel. Yes, please. I went inside, locked the door, and checked my phone. It was a digital war zone. I had 17 missed calls from Mom, 9 from Dad, and dozens of text messages from various aunts and uncles who had clearly already been fed a twisted version of the story. I ignored all of them. 2 hours later, my doorbell rang. I checked the camera. It was Mom. She was standing on the porch, wearing her Sunday church clothes, holding a massive glass dish of pot roast. She looked furious, but was trying to mask it with a tight, forced smile. I activated the audio. Mom, leave. She glared directly into the camera lens. Jake, open this door right now. We are going to sit down, eat this roast, and talk about this ridiculous stunt you pulled with the police. There is nothing to talk about. Chase tried to break into my house. He is banned from this property. He was not trying to break in, he was trying to move in, exactly like I told him he could. You don't own this house, Mom. You don't make the rules here. Her face twisted into an ugly sneer. I am your mother, I brought you into this world, and you will show me some respect. Open this damn door. No. She stood there, completely stunned. It was as if I had spoken to her in a foreign language. Excuse me? I said no. You have 5 seconds to leave my porch before I trigger the 120 decibel siren again. It's really loud, Mom, it'll probably make you drop that roast. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. I just had the police threaten to arrest your golden child. Try me. She stared at the camera, her chest heaving. She realized I was dead serious. Without another word, she slammed the glass dish of pot roast down onto the porch floor so hard I thought it would shatter, turned around, and stomped back to her car. She peeled out of the neighborhood. I left the pot roast on the porch for 3 hours. Then I put on a pair of rubber gloves, carried it to the outdoor trash can, and threw it away. Update 2. The weekend was a masterclass in toxic family dynamics. By Saturday afternoon, the flying monkeys had been fully deployed. My phone was flooded with messages from extended family members who hadn't spoken to me in years. Aunt Brenda, I heard what you did to your brother, calling the police on family as a sin. You need to repent and apologize to your mother. Uncle Tom, you've let a little bit of money go to your head. Boy. Chase's blood. Blood shares what they have. Cousin Mia. Wow. Just wow. Making your brother homeless so you can keep an empty room? You're actually a monster. I didn't reply to a single one. I archived the messages, blocked the numbers, and enjoyed my Saturday in absolute peace. But my family doesn't know how to quit. On Sunday afternoon, at exactly 1 p.m., the doorbell rang again. I pulled up the camera feed. It wasn't just Chase this time. It was a full-scale ambush. Mom, Dad, Chase, and a woman I had never seen before were standing on my porch. The stranger was in her late 50s, wearing a sharp business blazer, holding a clipboard, and wearing a condescending, practiced smile. I activated the audio. I told all of you to never come back here. Dad stepped forward, holding his hands up in a placating gesture. Jake, son, please, we don't want to fight. We brought someone to help us sort this out. He gestured to the woman. This is Dr. Eris. She's a licensed family mediator. We paid her a lot of money to come here today and help us facilitate a healthy dialogue. I literally laughed out loud. You brought a mediator to my house, uninvited, while I have a trespass warning against Chase? Dr. Eris stepped up to the camera, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. Hi, Jake. I know tensions are high right now, but communication is the key to healing familial wounds. If you could just let us inside, we can sit in the living room, establish some safe boundaries, and find a compromise that works for everyone. There is no compromise, I said coldly. My boundary is that none of you are allowed on my property. That is the only boundary. Mom started crying forced, theatrical tears. Jake, please, we're your family. You can't just throw us away over a stupid room. It's not about the room, Mom. It's about the fact that you view my life as a resource for you to exploit. You didn't ask me. You demanded. Chase crossed his arms. Bro, you're acting crazy. Just let Dr. Eris talk to you. I am giving you all 10 seconds to vacate the premises before I call 911. Dr. Eris frowned, her professional facade slipping slightly. Jake, hostility isn't productive. Refusing to engage in mediation shows a lack of emotional maturity on your part. 9. 8. Dad's face hardened. You're making a massive mistake, boy. 7. 6. He's bluffing again, Chase muttered, though he took a step back toward the stairs. 5. 4. I didn't wait until 1. I pulled up my phone dialer and called 911. I held my phone near the microphone so they could hear the dispatcher answer. 911, what is your emergency? The operator asked loudly through the speaker. Yes, I need immediate police dispatch to my address. I have 4 hostile individuals trespassing on my property. One of them, Chase, was officially trespassed by officers on Friday and is currently violating that order. The panic on the porch was instantaneous and glorious to watch. Dr. Eris's eyes went wide. Oh, my God, he's actually calling the police. She turned and practically sprinted toward her Prius parked on the street. I am not getting arrested for this. I'm leaving. Wait. Mom shrieked. Dad grabbed Mom's arm. Susan, we have to go. Now. Chase was already running toward his car. You're dead to me, Jake, dead to me. They scrambled into their vehicles like cockroaches fleeing from a light switch and sped away. By the time the police arrived 10 minutes later, the street was completely empty. It was the same older officer from Friday. He walked up to my door, shaking his head. They came back? He asked. With a hired family mediator, I replied, handing him the printed cease and desist letters I hadn't been able to serve them yet. The officer chuckled darkly. That's a new one. All right, Jake, I think it's time you go to the courthouse. You have enough evidence for a restraining order. Monday morning, I took a personal day off from work. At 8:30 a.m., I walked through the heavy glass doors of the county courthouse. It smelled like floor wax and desperation. I walked up to the clerk's window with a massive manila folder bursting with evidence. I had flash drives containing the Ring camera footage, printed transcripts of the text messages, the previous police incident reports, and the ignored cease and desist letters. I need to file for an emergency temporary restraining order. I told the exhausted-looking clerk. Against who? My mother, my father, and my brother. She paused, looking up at me over her glasses. All 3? Family dispute? They tried to forcefully move into my home, attempted to break down my door, and returned to harass me after being legally trespassed by police. She handed me a thick stack of paperwork. Fill these out, be specific. I spent 2 hours documenting every single detail, every text, every thread, every timeline. When I handed it back, the clerk reviewed it, stamped it in red ink, and handed me a docket number. The judge reviewed your police reports and granted a temporary restraining order effective immediately. They will be officially served by a sheriff's deputy within 48 hours. Your formal hearing for a permanent order is in exactly 2 weeks. Do not contact them. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt a weight lift off my chest that I didn't even know I was carrying. By Wednesday afternoon, the sheriff had served them. I knew exactly when it happened because my phone started blocking dozens of unknown numbers, and my sister, Sarah, called me. I hadn't spoken to Sarah in months, but she was the only one in the family who generally stayed out of the drama. Hey, she said quietly, Mom is losing her mind. A cop just showed up at her job and handed her court papers. Good. They earned them. Chase posted a massive manifesto on Facebook about you. Sarah warned me. It's got like 500 likes. He's telling everyone you had a psychotic break and attacked him. I logged onto Facebook for the first time in a year. Sure enough, Chase had posted a 1,000-word essay titled, When Blood Betrays You. He spun a wild tale about how I had invited him to stay, only to ambush him with the police because I was jealous of his relationship with Chloe. The comments were a cesspool of extended family members calling me a sociopath. I took screenshots of the post, added them to my evidence folder, and permanently deleted my Facebook account. Let them talk. But my family wasn't done. On Wednesday night, at exactly 11:15 p.m., my entire house plunged into total darkness. The power went out. I looked out the window, the streetlights were on, Mrs. Higgins' house was fully lit, it was just my house. I grabbed a heavy maglite flashlight and walked out to the side of my garage where the main electrical breaker box was located. The heavy metal padlock I kept on it had been violently smashed open with a pair of bolt cutters. Someone had opened the panel and flipped the main breaker switch, cutting power to my home. What they didn't realize was that Dave the security tech had installed cellular and battery backups on my cameras. I flipped the breaker back on, the house illuminating instantly. I checked the camera feed on my phone. The side garage camera clearly showed a figure in a dark hoodie sprinting away from the box and jumping into the passenger side of a dark sedan. I couldn't see the face, but I recognized the dented bumper of my dad's Honda Accord. I called the police. They documented the vandalism, took the bolt cutters left in the grass as evidence, and added it to my file. It was a direct violation of the TRO. Thursday morning, the escalation reached its peak. I woke up to my phone buzzing frantically. Chase was standing on the public sidewalk at the edge of my lawn, holding a piece of cardboard that read, "My brother locked me out, please help." He was holding his phone up, live streaming the entire protest on Instagram to his hundreds of followers. I didn't go outside, I didn't yell. I just called 911. My brother is currently standing outside my home, violating an active temporary restraining order. He is live streaming it. The police arrived in 3 minutes, sirens wailing. I watched the live stream on my secondary monitor as the cruiser aggressively hopped the curb. Chase's smug face instantly dropped. He tried to run, but the younger officer tackled him into the grass, slapping handcuffs on him right there on the live stream. The comments section on his video exploded into absolute chaos before the phone fell into the dirt and the feed cut out. Chase spent the weekend in the county jail. On Friday, Sarah sent me an email with the subject line, "You need to see this for court." It was a massive screenshot of the secret family group chat. "Mom, we have to get into Jake's house and find something to use against him in court. Financial records, anything. Dad, the lawyer said we need to prove he's mentally unstable. Aunt Brenda, how are you going to get in? Mom, I know he hides a spare key under the fake rock in the backyard. I saw him do it last year. We can go in while he's at work. Dad, we'll go on Tuesday. Make sure he's gone." They were literally conspiring to commit a felony breaking and entering. I forwarded the screenshots directly to the police, and to Marcus. I didn't have a spare key under a rock, I had thrown it away months ago, but the intent was documented in writing. I spent Saturday installing 4 hidden indoor cameras just in case they tried to break a window. The 2 weeks leading up to the court date were tense, but they never showed up on Tuesday. The arrest had finally spooked them. The hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m., on a Thursday. I sat at the plaintiff's table, wearing a tailored suit, with my massive binder of evidence neatly organized. Mom, Dad, and Chase sat at the defense table. Chase looked exhausted and furious. Mom looked like she was trying to play the victim, dabbing her dry eyes with a tissue. They had hired a cheap, sweaty lawyer who looked entirely out of his depth. Judge Vance, a stern woman in her 50s who looked like she had zero tolerance for nonsense, took the bench. Case number 2, 4RO8847. Petitioner seeking a permanent protective order against Chase, Susan, and Richard. I have reviewed the petitioner's submitted evidence. Does the defense have a statement? Their lawyer stood up, clearing his throat. Your Honor, this is a simple familial misunderstanding that has been blown vastly out of proportion. My clients were acting under the assumption of an invitation. The petitioner's reaction was extreme, and my clients are simply asking for the restraining order to be dismissed so they can pursue private family counseling. Judge Vance stared at him over her glasses. Counseling? Is that what they call vandalizing a breaker box with bolt cutters and conspiring to break into a home? The lawyer stammered. Your Honor, there is no proof. I have time-stamped video footage of the respondent, Chase, attempting to force entry into the home. Judge Vance interrupted sharply. I have police reports confirming he violated a temporary order by protesting on the sidewalk, resulting in his arrest. And I have screenshots of a group chat where your clients literally planned a burglary to steal financial documents. She turned her piercing gaze to Mom. Susan, did you write this message? We can go in while he's at work? Mom stood up, her lip trembling. Your Honor, he is my son. I was just worried about his mental health. We are family. Family does not give you immunity from the penal code, ma'am. The judge snapped. You do not get to dictate who lives in a house you do not own. You do not get to harass a man at his residence. And you certainly do not get to plot a break-in. She banged her gavel, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the quiet courtroom. I am granting the permanent restraining order. All 3 respondents are ordered to maintain a distance of no less than 500 feet from the petitioner, his residence, and his place of employment. There is to be absolutely zero contact. No phone calls, no emails, no third-party messages, and no social media harassment. If you violate this order, you will face immediate arrest and mandatory jail time for contempt of court. We are adjourned. Mom let out a wail, burying her face in Dad's shoulder. Chase glared at me with pure, unadulterated hatred, but he didn't say a word. The bailiff escorted them out first to ensure we didn't cross paths. I walked out of the courthouse 20 minutes later into the bright morning sun. Marcus was waiting by my car, leaning against the hood with 2 coffees. Well? He asked. Permanent order granted. 500 feet. Complete no contact. Marcus grinned, handing me a coffee. Told you. You set the boundary, you enforced it, and you won. How does it feel? I took a sip of the coffee, looking up at the sky. It doesn't feel like a celebration, I admitted, it just feels quiet. But it's a good quiet. When I pulled into my driveway later that afternoon, everything looked exactly the same as it had 2 weeks ago. The house was still there. The grass was still green, but it felt fundamentally different. It wasn't just a house anymore. It was a fortress of peace that I had successfully defended. I went inside, disarmed the alarm, and sat on my couch. The silence was beautiful. 3 months later, I received a letter in the mail from Sarah. Inside was a photograph of her and her kids at a local park, smiling and happy. On the back, she had written, "You were right. Boundaries aren't cruel. They are necessary to survive these people." I finally cut them off too. I'm proud of you, love, Sarah. I smiled, walked into my kitchen, and placed the photo on my refrigerator using a magnet. It sat right next to the famous lasagna recipe Mrs. Higgins had written out for me last week, and a postcard from Marcus's vacation in Cabo. My fridge wasn't empty anymore. It just had different people on it. Better people. People who respected me. My phone buzzed on the counter. It was a text from Mrs. Higgins. Making a fresh batch of garlic bread tonight. You want a plate? I typed back, I'll be right over. I grabbed my keys and looked at the glowing green light of my security control panel on the wall. I looked at the reinforced locks on the door. I had spent thousands of dollars and weeks of stress putting all these defenses in place to protect what I had built. I didn't really need them anymore. The family had completely backed off out of fear of jail time. But I kept the system armed anyway. Because setting boundaries isn't just about keeping toxic people out of your life. It's about proving to yourself that you have the strength to do it, and that realization made all the difference in the world.